Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another video on this channel. I know I said over the last couple videos that the next video coming out on this channel was going to be just a regular family vlog, you know, lighthearted. But over the last really 24 hours, I've gotten several emails, messages, text even, just asking what do I think about the organization Black Lives Matter. And the reason many people were upset was because the organization Black Lives Matter, on their website, I'll link to it in the description, it takes some stances that do clearly go, I'll throw it up on the screen here, that do clearly go against Christian orthodoxy. So a lot of people are saying, hey, where do you stand on this? So this video might upset people on every spectrum. This video is geared primarily towards Christians if you're watching it. If you're not a Christian, this video might upset you. If you are, it might still upset you. So let's talk about it. All right, so I'm just gonna come right out of the gate and say it. I am not affiliated with, nor do I support all of what the organization Black Lives Matter stands for. I believe that there are many aspects to the Black Lives Matter movement that are outside of Christian orthodoxy. You know, I could go through all of the things on this list, but I mean, one that sticks out right here, it says on their website under the We Believe, it says we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure, all right? And then it goes on to talk about what they believe. But I personally believe that the family structure is seen in Scripture and necessary for the flourishment of society. And so I'm not gonna endorse an organization that clearly goes against what Scripture teaches. So that's my first thing I'm gonna say. Number two, do I think Christians should use the phrase Black Lives Matter? Well, let me say this. I completely, wholeheartedly, 100%, I need more adjectives, enthusiastically, unreservedly, strongly, heartedly, fervently, I think you get the picture, I completely reject the notion that using the phrase Black Lives Matter is inseparable from the movement itself. I think people can use the phrase Black Lives Matter without associating themselves with the movement Black Lives Matter. Part of the reason I'm saying this is because the vast majority of people, especially those who are Christians that are using the phrase Black Lives Matter, are not saying that they're proponents or adherents to the movement itself. No, we're just simply saying that Black lives matter. Not that they matter more than other lives, but that they matter as well in a world where it doesn't always seem like our lives do matter. Now, I know that even me saying this, a counter argument could be, well, you know, even by just using it, you're unintentionally promoting an organization that promotes things that are antithetical to Christian orthodoxy. And to that, I'd say, well, number one, I think that's a false dichotomy. I mean, in this whole conversation that we're having about race, one of the biggest problems that we're always seeing is we're always limiting people's options to this or this. Either if you use this phrase, you're standing behind everything that movement represents, or you can't use the phrase at all. When we use that mentality, I think we're changing the majority use of that phrase. Yes, words do have their meanings, and it's so important for us to understand what we're saying and what that represents. But again, the majority of people who are using that phrase are not using it synonymously with being a part of that organization. There are phrases and slogans and words that are inseparable from a movement or an organization. I think one of the most well-known examples, and I'm not going to put a picture of this on the screen because this video will get demonetized, even though it probably already will, is the Nazi symbol, right? A few years ago, there was a clothing company, I forget what they were called, but they launched a clothing company where they wanted to redeem the swastika. And so they started putting the swastika on everything and trying to say like, hey, this was originally a symbol for peace. And so we want to bring that back and redeem the meaning. Everyone's like, no, like you can't do that. Everyone associates that with the Nazis, right? And so it didn't work out well for them. However, like I said, you know, I believe when the majority of people are using this phrase, we're not using it to try and attach ourselves to the organization, which is antithetical to Christianity, but we're just trying to simply say that Black Lives Matter. And I think that many of these other beliefs that people are against and rightly should be against were added on to this movement over time. My concern with this whole argument that if you use the phrase Black Lives Matter, then you're becoming part of this organization. Or really my concern with even having to make this video that I really did not want to make is that I'm starting to realize that this is an endless conversation, and that no matter how people of color choose to express that they're hurting, it won't be acceptable. I think part of the reason is because many people, especially people in the church, come to these conversations of racial reconciliation or racial injustice with an attitude of suspicion and assuming the worst in people. I mean, just look through the past several years. People are hurting, so they decide to take a knee and say, hey, don't do that. You're disrespecting the flag. Find another way to express your frustration. Out comes the Black Lives Matter phrase. People start saying Black Lives Matter, and then it's, oh, hey, don't do that. Well, what about everyone else? All lives matter. Just a few weeks ago, people start protesting, and those protests start to turn into riots. And it's, hey, I know you're mad, but don't tear down your community. And now with the phrase Black Lives Matter, it's, hey, yeah, I know Black Lives Matter, but do you know what else this organization stands for? You don't want to tie yourself to that. And I think as Christians, we should evaluate everything clearly. 1 Peter 5:8 says that the devil walks around roaring like a prowling lion, seeking to devour. And so we should, to some degree, have a level of suspicion, especially when there's a new trend that comes out and we don't want to just jump on the bandwagon. However, I think what's very helpful is when we seek to understand the whys instead of just condemning the what. I mean, it's a novel idea, but what if instead of seeking to condemn people who are using a certain phrase, we focus on the reason why they're using that phrase? What if we seek to understand instead of just simply assuming the worst? And while we're at it, can we stop trying to politicize race? I got a message that said, hey, do you really think Jesus would wear a Black Lives Matter t-shirt? Which, number one, I wasn't wearing one. It said Jesus on it. But ultimately, the answer is I don't know. And I don't think there's a real huge benefit in using anachronistic arguments like that. What I will say is I don't think Jesus would fit neatly into either political party. And this isn't a video about politics, because race itself I don't think is political. But I do agree with, I saw a tweet and it says, if you seek to honor the whole Christ, your liberal friends will think you're too conservative and your conservative friends will think you're too liberal. So I guess to some degree, if some of my friends on one side think that, you know, I'm wrong for rejecting many of these notions of the Black Lives Matter movement, and my friends on the other side think that I'm wrong for using that phrase, then maybe it's because I'm not trying to appease a certain political party, but I'm simply trying to follow Jesus. And I think by following Jesus and trying to live a Christ-like example in a loving life, I think one of the most loving things you can say to someone who's hurting is, hey, you matter. So in summary, I think Christians can easily utter the phrase Black Lives Matter without condoning everything that movement and that organization stands for. And I know not all of you might agree with me, and that's totally okay not to agree with me. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. So leave a comment, and I'd love to engage and understand where you're coming from as well. And actually, as I close, I just thought of this. Like I said in another video, I wish we could get rid of all buts in conversation about race. But if we have to nuance everything that we're saying in these conversations, just try switching the order. Okay, it'll make all the difference. If you want to talk about the fact that you don't agree with the organization Black Lives Matter, say that first. So instead of saying Black Lives Matter, but hey, I'm not part of that organization, say, hey, I don't stand for everything this organization stands for, but Black Lives Matter. That will make a world of difference as you have these conversations. And if you can't even say that, if you can't even say, hey, I don't stand behind all of these ideals, but Black Lives Matter, period, not but Black Lives Matter and all lives matter, not but Black Lives Matter, but again, I don't agree with everything they stand for. If you can't just say, I don't agree with the whole movement, but Black Lives Matter, period. If you can't just say that, then maybe it's not the movement you're struggling with, but the phrase itself. But I'm tired, and not tired of making these videos. I love making these videos and love engaging, with you guys in the comments and whatnot. I'm just tired of the fact that everyone has to come to these conversations with an attitude of suspicion instead of an attitude of forgiveness. Like, whatever happened to assuming the best in people? Why, because I use the phrase Black Lives Matter, do people assume the worst in my intentions? But again, I'm not trying to turn this into a rant. I'm just kind of thinking out loud, which can be dangerous on camera. So I'm going to end this video here. I do have a video coming out on Thursday. Today was the day the vlog was supposed to come out, but I got a video coming out on Thursday about what is Juneteenth. Also, not that anybody cares about this, but on Thursday, I'm finally getting my first post-COVID haircut. So I can take this hat off without being worried about the video being demonetized. But anyway, I'm rambling. Video's over. See you guys.